I think we're ready to start. Hello, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to National Geographic Traveller Travel Geeks, the other side of the Balearics, sponsored by Formentera. My name is Conor McGovern. I'm the commissioning editor at National Geographic Traveller. And if you've not been to one of our Travel Geeks events before, then welcome, first and foremost. How it's going to work is we're going to have around 45-50 minutes of very laid-back discussion about the beautiful islands of Formentera, Majorca, Ibiza and Menorca with our lovely panel, who I'll be introducing very shortly. And then there'll be a chance for a little Q&A at the end if you have any questions yourself. So without further ado, let me introduce our very distinguished, experienced and passionate panel, starting with Fiona Tapp. They're going to all appear magically now, like something from Mr. Ben. Here she is, Fiona, hi. Fiona is a British travel writer living in Canada, and her work has appeared in everywhere from Lonely Planet to Travel and Leisure, or should I say Travel and Leisure if it's Canadian?
Yeah, you could.
Okay, that magazine. Guardian, Independent, everywhere. She's an expert on the beautiful island of Formentera and has travelled to more than 30 countries. Welcome, Fiona. Where are you dialing in from in Canada?
I'm in Ottawa, the capital.
Oh, lovely.
It's pretty cold today.
It's 6 feet of snow outside your front door.
It's starting to melt. We're welcoming spring soon.
Excellent, lovely. Well, hopefully a bit less snow in the Balearics at the moment. But we are going to go to Spain now. This feels a bit like Eurovision, doesn't it? To introduce Isabella Noble. She's about to pop up on the screen in a second. Isabella is English-Australian. Hi, Isabella. English-Australian travel journalist who was brought up in sunny southern Spain and is a Spain specialist, writing for the likes of Lonely Planet, Travel, Telegraph, Guardian, Condé Nast Traveller, plenty of other magazines as well. And she's also the author of Lonely Planet's Pocket Ibiza and Formentera Guide. So looking forward to hearing more from you, Isabella. Where are you calling from in Spain?
So I'm in Tarifa in southern Spain, Andalusia, the southernmost tip of mainland Europe.
Oh, lovely. So have you had a chance to get to the Balearics in the last couple of years or so?
I'm actually going the first time in a while in April, beginning of April.
Oh, lovely.
I'll be able to go back there.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Well, we're going to arm you with
Really
plenty of tips this evening for your next trip. Thanks, Isabella. We also have Maya Boyd joining us. Maya is a travel writer and author who penned the beautiful coffee table book Ibiza Bohemia, published by Aslin. Go and check it out. It's a lovely book. She's lived in Ibiza on and off for many years. She's also the founder of Ibiza Insights, a historical and cultural forum dedicated to honouring the traditions and heritage of Ibiza and Formentera, as well as Casa Gaia, which is an Ibiza-inspired textiles and accessories line. And she now divides her time between Ibiza and West Sussex. Hi, Maya.
Hi, hello.
Where are you calling from? Sussex, Ibiza?
I'm actually in West Sussex, yes.
Oh, okay.
I've just got back from Ibiza last week and I'll be heading out there again in 10 days. So yeah, a little brief hiatus in England.
Oh, lovely. Very nice. Looking forward to hearing more from you a bit later on. And last but not least, we have Jessica Vincent. Jess is an award-winning travel journalist whose work has appeared on BBC Travel, CNN, National Geographic Traveller, among many others. She's the current Global Travel Media Alliance Global Travel Writer of the Year. Now, there's a title. And is also the founding editor of the Best British Travel Writing of the 21st Century, which was published earlier this month. Congrats, Jess. Nice to have you with us. Where are you calling from?
Oh, I was muted. Classic.
2 years on, we're still doing it.
Oh my God. Sorry, everyone. I am in Flaine in France. I'm on my ski holiday, Connor. So I'm just taking a little work break this evening, but not really work. So
no, it's all fun. It's all pleasure. Well, thanks. What an international panel we have this evening from all over the world. This is brilliant. Excellent. So I just want to start by throwing it open to all of you, actually. We all love the Balearic Islands. They're a really beautiful part of the world. And the whole point of this session tonight is to showcase the other side of the Balearics. So perhaps the areas and the experiences you might not have visited or done yourself the first, second time. So our panel will be here sharing their tips and secrets for getting the most out of this beautiful part of Spain. So Jess, perhaps I could start with you. What is it about the Balearics that makes them so special in the first place?
I think it's just the diversity of things to do. You know, I remember going to Majorca when I was young on half-term trips with my family, and it's one of those places where there's something to do for everyone. You know, it doesn't matter what age you are, what kind of thing you're into. You can spend all day on the beach if you want to, but you can also climb mountains, go canyoning, sail on beautiful sailboats along the coast. There's also beautiful food. So there really is something for everyone. I think when you're traveling with very picky family members like myself, that is just a dream come true. So that's why I love the Balearics, probably because there's just so much to do, as I'm sure we will chat about in a moment.
Absolutely, I couldn't agree more. Fiona, you're nodding along there, smiling, probably dreaming about being in Formentera. What is it for you? Yeah, what is it for you?
I was just thinking when Jess said about family holidays, like the whole region for me is just about memory making. And yeah, my first international trips when I was about 7 or 8 were to Mallorca, Menorca with my family. And then I went to Ibiza, of course, as a teenager, and to party and whatnot. And then Formentera, I've kind of found, not that it was hidden, as an adult, and really it's become my favorite of the islands. But yeah, all about memory making. It's just like Jess said, there's something for everybody.
Definitely. Maya, what is it about the Balearics that has you going back time after time?
I think, you know, I've got a really long family history there. My dad was there in the 70s. And I think it's that, for me, it's that like super bohemian imprint that you still find in Ibiza and Formentera particularly, that keeps me coming back. It's, I've never seen such a diverse mix of people anywhere on the planet as you find in Ibiza. And then I think for me, a huge pull is the art, the archaeology and the architecture. Ibiza certainly has a web of culture sewn into it that's as intricate as you'll find anywhere else on the planet, and it's fascinating for me. It just goes back thousands of years. So
hearing that alone just makes me excited just to get back out there again. Isabella, you've written guidebooks to the region as well. What is it that is it a sort of destination that keeps surprising you on each visit? What is it about it that makes it so interesting from a writer's point of view and a traveler's point of view?
Yeah, absolutely. There's sort of you know, something new to see every time, a new pocket of an island where something interesting has happened, or somewhere that you just didn't quite get to last time, and then you go and you wish you had. For me, it's partly it's all about those beautiful natural spaces. There's all these protected areas, lots of parques naturales, which are sort of lesser protected natural spaces than a national park, but still a protected natural space. And you can do, they're slightly more accessible with it, you know, within despite being protected. So you can, you know, kayaking, and there's lots of activities that you can do. So, you know, for me, it's about all those gorgeous natural spaces and the variety of those as well, which is something the others were touching on.
Definitely. And perhaps we could talk a little bit about the natural side of the islands, because I think that is a real asset to the Balearics. What those parques naturales, those natural parks that you mentioned there, if I were looking to go there, perhaps I've never tried one of these parks before, where would you recommend for a first timer looking to get under the skin of the island in that respect? Isabella, perhaps.
Yeah. So depends which island, obviously. In Ibiza and Formentera, there's a beautiful Salinas Natural Park on the southeast end of Ibiza and over to Formentera, and that protects the seagrass, Posidonia seagrass, which is underwater, and that's why the sea there is that gorgeous turquoise colour. And there are beaches that you can go and visit. I think in there's sort of slightly restricted access on the Formentera side, which anyone who's been there slightly more recently than me probably knows what the latest is. And then in Menorca, there's also on the east coast, there's the Albufera de Grau Natural Park, which is part of the reason that Menorca became a UNESCO biosphere reserve, all those years ago. And that's got sort of gorgeous kayaking, paddleboarding, sort of marshes kind of area, and that's really beautiful as well.
Maya, would you anything you'd add to that list?
Yeah, I mean, I love how you touched on the Salinas Nature Reserve. I think something important to say about those areas is that they're an amazing sort of melting pot of sort of Moorish and Roman industrial heritage, along with beautiful natural spaces. So the salt pans themselves, the Salinas, the salt pans, have been in pretty much constant use since about 500 BC. And that's, I mean, in Ibiza, they're not in use in Formentera anymore, but in Ibiza, they're certainly still in use now. And to see this sort of like really ancient rural technology still in use after many hundreds of years is quite fascinating. And the way that along with the more natural of the natural areas have been protected as a sort of underneath an umbrella, I think it's really important.
Yeah, and Fiona, you know Formentera quite well. This idea of protecting natural environments and how the natural side of things has been such a significant part of life in these islands for so long. Where would you recommend in Formentera to really get a good handle on that? To really,
interesting that Isabella was talking about the seagrass, because the last time that I visited, which was just before lockdown, I was speaking with somebody from the Posidonian Project, where they're trying to protect the Posidonian meadows, this seagrass. And, everybody knows the water's beautiful, that it's such a gorgeous colour and that it's very unique. But the reason for it, this seagrass that's so ancient, it's like 100,000 years old, the more you learn about it, it's just awe-inspiring. And it's such a great cleanup. This seagrass is so clever that it releases all this oxygen and it protects the coastal areas from erosion. So I mean, literally any beach you go to, you're going to see the result of this amazing natural biodiversity. I mean, I love all the popular beaches. The reason why they're popular is because they're so gorgeous. Ilietes is just as gorgeous as it is, and all of the pictures that you've seen, it looks just like that.
Yeah.
The nature trails that they have there, green routes, I believe they're called. You can bike them, you can walk them. One I like particularly because Visit Formentera produces these great guides, and they'll tell you exactly like how long it takes to walk a particular route. So before you go out, especially if you have kids, you can think, oh, this is going to be like 4.5 clicks. It's going to take us 30 minutes, 90 minutes, whatever it might be, so that you're not caught unaware. There's nothing worse than thinking, oh, it's really hot out today and now I'm stuck on this trail and I don't know how long it's going to take to get back to the hotel.
I've been there before.
Yeah, especially if you've got like a buggy and little ones with you. So so they're really helpful. I love the Route 19 that takes you through Ilietes and also onto Levant beach. Just be prepared, there's a nudist beach, so that's your bag. It's awesome. If it's not, go the other way. But they're just when I was speaking to this person from the Seagrass Project, it was just amazing to learn more about it. And you're going to see that at every body of water. You're going to see that natural biodiversity.
Can I just add something to that? It's really nice if you're down on Ilietes Beach, as Fiona just said, you can actually, if you go to the very end, you can then cross a little tiny sandbar to a little uninhabited islet called Espalmador. And that's a really phenomenal little nature reserve. It's got dunes and sulfurous mud springs. You're not really supposed to go in anymore, but everybody does. And that's about as close to being a castaway as you'll get in Europe. It's again, and just seeing that Posidonia in action with the color of the water over there is something else.
God, incredible! Yeah, it's going back to what Jess said at the beginning. It is that diversity, isn't it? There's just in such a small area, in such a small region, there's just so much to do. And Jess, going back to you, that perhaps the best way to really experience all that natural beauty up close is through getting out there and hiking, biking, kayaking, swimming. Is it what what would you recommend as a top way to throw yourself, not literally, or perhaps literally, so if we're talking adventure, to throw yourself into this this natural side of the Balearics?
Oh gosh, all of it. I think Fiona, Isabella, and Maya already touched on Ibiza, Formentera. But for me, Majorca has all of these amazing things as well. And one of the natural parks that I love, which actually I don't think it's visited that often because it's a little bit tricky to arrange. You have to pre-arrange with the park ranger. But you can do all of these things. You can kayak, you can hike, you can climb, you can snorkel, and that is the Cabrera Natural Park. It's on the Cabrera Archipelago. It's a stunning national park, both in the sea and on land. It's about 10 kilometers. I think I just searched that earlier. 10 kilometers off the southeast coast of Majorca, and you can actually see turtles there sometimes. Whales if you're really lucky, if you're there at the right time. So it's amazing. You think you're in the Caribbean. And there's also the largest island in the archipelago has 14 kilometers of coastline, which is a lovely a long day hike, but it's not hilly, so it's really, really nice, easy day hike. And you pass castle ruins, you've got beautiful lighthouses, you can then go into little coves and have a dip. It's heaven. It's heaven. So if you can get it sorted with the park ranger, it's definitely, I don't know if you ladies, I don't know if you know any other way to organize it, but you do have to, I think, pre-arrange it before you go, and the boats leave from Colonia de San Jordi, so make a note if you want to go.
Lovely.
Another really nice one to do in Majorca is the GR221, which is the dry stone route. That basically goes from north to south, whichever way you're going, north to south, south to north. But if you pre-book in advance, as Jessica was saying, you can stay in these little refugios on the way. So you're in these amazing little mountain huts that sort of, some of them are literally a stone bunk, some of them are a little bit more sophisticated with a restaurant. They've all got some sort of food and some sort of shower situation, but they're basically back to basics. And I think there are 6 on the GR221, so you can make that into, you know, a 6 or 7 day trek, which is really nice to completely just switch off. You basically only, you nip down into Dea, but apart from that, you don't go through any civilization, as it were.
Incredible. And Isabella, Menorca also has some incredible hiking as well, doesn't it? By the way, everyone who's watching, if you do have any questions for our panel, don't forget to leave them in the Q&A function, and then hopefully we can get to as many as we can at the end of the session. But Isabella, yes, the Camí de Cabals is called, isn't it? The coastal trek around the island.
Yeah, I was about to jump in and say that's another great route as well for people to do. So the Camí de Cabals is an ancient trail that goes all the way around the whole outside edge of Menorca, and it's centuries and centuries old, and it's been recently restored for hiking and mountain biking and horse riding, and you can sort of do you know, a little chunk between, you know, to get to a beautiful beach, or you can do a couple of days, or you can do the whole thing. I think it's 185 kilometers, and I think that takes about a week if you wanted to do the whole thing. And it's a great way to sort of see some of the, you know, to see different towns along the coastline. You can stay in different places along the way, get a feel for the different, the 2 different cities, Mahón and Ciutadella in Menorca. And it's been very popular since it's been restored. And part of the restoration was sort of due to local demand from, you know, people wanting to use this path, you know, sort of day to day, and to get to all these beautiful hidden coves that Menorca has. But a lot of them are, you can't reach by car, so you have to walk part of the way at least.
Yeah, absolutely. I did a stretch of that myself last summer. Dangerously hot conditions. I wouldn't. But you're grateful when you get to one of these incredible neon blue beaches, because it is almost as if it's been designed that way, because you know, you hike through this incredible landscape, it's very dry, arid, rustic landscape, and you turn the corner and suddenly this dazzling blue sea is right there in front of you, and a bit like this picture we have now. It is incredible, and it's a really good way to get a feel of the 2 sides of the island without going too much into the geology. It's not what this is about. The north coast and the south coast are very different, aren't they, in Menorca?
Yeah, absolutely. The north coast is sort of more kind of reddish, and then the south coast has sort of those sort of kind of blonde white beaches. That's sort of the more famous ones. The north coast is slightly less known, and therefore not quite as busy.
More
You know,
rugged,
sort of the
right?
peak. Yeah, more rugged, a bit wilder. And the south coast, you know, so those peak summer months can get very busy, which is a great reason to go at any other time of year.
Absolutely,
And
yes. Definitely. Fiona, leading on from what Isabella was talking about, the ancient hiking trails around the island, history is something that makes the islands so unique, isn't it? There's such a wealth of history in these islands. Where would you recommend starting to get a handle on it?
Yeah, I think it's a great idea to travel around a little bit when you're staying, especially in Formentera. San Francisco is like the capital, and I think the place you should go if you're really interested in history. The church there, I think it's from 1730 something, but there's a chapel that's right from the 13th century, and some of the architecture there's really interesting to look at, especially for family groups. It's fun to go and look at the lighthouses and the watchtowers around, and especially as they were first put there to protect the islands from pirates. So that's always fun with kids, because you can say, let's look out for some marauders and see who we can see today. So I always like doing that.
Absolutely. And Maya, anything you'd add to that? You would really implore visitors to go and seek out themselves?
Yeah, I mean, I think in Ibiza town, you have to start in Del Villa, which is the walled citadel, the old town. I mean, Del Villa actually means upper town, high town. That was first settled in 546 BC by the Phoenicians. It's been the capital of Ibiza's civilization, whether that's the Romans, the Moors, the Arabs, the Catalans. It's been under successive occupation ever since 546 BC. It's full of hidden chapels and tiny little streets and escape tunnels, and the cathedral sits on top of a mosque, sits on top of a temple. I mean, it's just layer upon layer of history. There's a fantastic archaeological museum up there, the ground floor of which is sort of glass, if that makes sense, and it's actually built over archaeological ruins. It's really interesting for kids. You've also got the Modern Art Museum up there, which is phenomenal, and sort of touches on a lot of Ibiza's more recent history, which is was certainly a high point of which was sort of like the mid-century era, between sort of after the Second World War, and just after the Spanish Civil War, when a lot of artists, and European in particular, European and American artists and architects, Owen Bronner, people like that, made Ibiza their home. There was a big Bauhaus movement. I would definitely start with Del Villa and then filter out from there. All the little villages have their own things going on. Everyone has a saint's day, like a feast day, which is a really great time to see traditional dancing and weaving and all that kind of stuff.
Sounds fascinating. Isabella, is there anywhere you'd recommend?
Yeah, I was going to say in Ibiza as well, San Eulalia on the east coast is another interesting place from a historical perspective. It's sort of it's a beach, a sort of holiday beach resort in part these days, but it's got this beautiful old town on a hill with a church that was it's sort of fortified because it used to be a refuge from pirate attacks. So that's really interesting to wander around, and they've got a small museum, an ethnographic museum, which is very interesting as well, in an old traditional country home. So that's fascinating as well.
And going back to Menorca, I'd say this: as I was there recently, but the Talatic Heritage, which can be found in Menorca and Majorca, particularly Menorca, though, is fascinating, isn't it? And I think it's on the UNESCO tentative World Heritage list at the moment. What's the best way to experience that, and what is it, first of all?
Yeah, so they're it's a collection of Bronze Age sites. Some of them are burial chambers, some of them people aren't quite sure what they were used for. They might have been sort of worship points, and they're dotted all over Menorca. The ones in Majorca I don't know that well, but I know the ones in Menorca better. And sort of a great place to sort of start learning about that before you go and visit sites is the Menorca Museum in Maon, which sort of goes through the history of the island, and gives you kind of an introduction before you sort of head out and visit these. They're sort of just dotted around everywhere, sort of in fields, and some more easily accessible than others.
Maya, going back to the salt pans that you mentioned in Formentera and Ibiza, that's really symbolic of this really long-standing tradition for crafts and manufacturing that is still really quite prevalent in the Balearics today, isn't it?
Yeah, I think the same as anywhere over the world, there was a definite lull, a post-industrial lull in local manufacture, olive oil and almonds and all those kind of things when it became easier and more economical to get things elsewhere. And I think certainly in the last sort of 20 years, we've seen a massive, or 10 or 20 years, massive resurgence of interest in the preservation of these rural crafts, if not the re-implementation of them on a daily basis, because like I said, a lot of them are uneconomical, but certainly things like weaving, I mean, esparto weaving is really unique to the area, where there's a little island off the coast of Ibiza called Isla Esparta, and you sail out there in June and then you slice the esparto grass, then it has to be soaked for 48 days in massive tanks of salt water under the sea, and then it's woven. And I think a lot of younger people are realizing that their grandparents are probably coming towards the end of their lives now, and their grandparents would have been the last generation of people who did these things on an actual daily basis. So there's almost like this mad scrabble now to preserve as much of that knowledge as possible. And it's great, I mean, for someone like me to be able to pop into my local village and see now the old women sitting there weaving again because they're being paid to do so, whether it's by selling of their things or because they're receiving government funding. But it's really special to see these traditions being upheld, because like in a lot of the world, they're not safe.
Absolutely. Jess, has anything caught your eye when you've been on your travels there in terms of crafts and traditions and things that
I mean, textiles, leather, glass, it's all happening in the Balearics. There is so many crafts. You only have to, walk down the streets and you'll find lots of workshops that aren't there for tourists. They really are. They've been working there for hundreds of years and they continue to do so. And it's lovely to see places like Majorca, like Ibiza, Formentera, Menorca, where they are making things for the love of it. It isn't a tourist attraction. And I think that's the difference between buying a souvenir in the Balearic Islands versus buying a souvenir maybe on the mainland. You really can, you girls are nodding. It's that feel that it is something really, I don't want to use the word authentic because it gets really thrown around, but it does feel like it's been made with love, and it's been made, from a family that really do live and breathe those things. So yes, also pearls in Menorca and Majorca. There are tons and tons of different things, but textiles, leather, glass, I would say, are some of the biggest ones to look out for when you're looking for something to buy to take home. And please do buy something, because it helps enormously.
Absolutely. Yeah, Fiona, anything you'd add to that? Any must-buy souvenirs?
Yes, very similar to Jess. I mean, the markets, May to October, you're going to find so many markets available, leather, glassware. In Formentera, you've got to get some of the liquid salt that comes from the salt mine, the salt flats there. It's really fun to spray it on your salad when you get home and remember your wonderful holiday.
Absolutely. There's some excellent salt in Majorca as well, from a place called Estrenc at the bottom. Incredible, really, really fine flowery salt that's I still have some in my cupboard actually. I digress, but that does lead me on to talk about food. And this year, Isabella, Menorca is European region of gastronomy, isn't it? What was it that helped give it that title?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of hard to know where to start. There's so much great
hard.
food in Menorca.
Yeah,
and I was going to add on about the souvenirs that you know, a lot of the great souvenirs in the Balearics are you know, some of the food products are sold. We were talking about honeys, cheeses, olive oils, lovely wines, that kind of thing. Anyway, so about Menorca, there's fabulous seafood, lots of delicious fish stews, rice dishes. There's Maon cheese, which is very famous, only made there, and it's got its own denomination of origin. So it's, you know, it's very very varied, and in Menorca it's always been sort of quite small production, very local ingredients, and quite traditional recipes. There's, you know, there are some definitely some places that are innovating with traditional ingredients, but there's a very strong sort of sense of traditional cuisine and recipes and flavors that's kind of sort of shining through at the moment.
Jess, food is something we always look forward to when we go on holiday, isn't it? What would you? That wasn't aimed at you in particular.
I was thinking, why are you looking at me?
I did just realise that seemed very pointed, didn't it? But I'm sure we can all agree that food is obviously such a huge part of when we go away, and the Balearics has no shortage of good food. What's your favourite thing you've tried out there?
Oh, so much. You know, I love my food. I write.
That's why I asked the question.
I'm trying to, so I'm not talking for too long. One of my favourite things that I tried was in Formentera, actually, and it's the ensalada paellesa. Well, in some places say paellesa or paresa. I'm not sure the right, but I say paellesa anyway. It's a salad made with tomatoes, onions, peppers, and the most important part is the dried fish, is called pêche sec. Which is fish that's sun dried, and obviously gets that nice Mediterranean breeze, giving it a lovely flavour, and then it's preserved in olive oil, and then they cut it up into strips and put it on this salad. And actually, it used to be kind of a poor man's food. It's just something that fishermen would eat, but now it's becoming kind of this real haute cuisine. Chefs are doing really incredible things with it in the island, but for me, my favorite way to eat it is still just on a salad, because don't put any fancy things on it. I just like it on the salad, on the beach with a view of the sea in Formentera. And honestly, I don't think you can go wrong. Whatever restaurant you go to in Formentera, they should be able to prepare you a really good ensalada paellesa. So, and it's lovely. It's got a lovely bit of history as well, because the fish is being prepared that way for hundreds of years, and it's still the fish is still by the fishermen. They go out and collect it in these beautiful old wooden sailboats, which is beautiful to see as well. So go if you can. It'd be great if you get the opportunity to go and actually see how they make it, and then obviously try it. It's really good.
My dinner is going to pale in insignificance compared to all of this now. Fiona and Maya, you two are nodding along, smiling fondly. What are the food highlights for you two?
Well, I was just agreeing with Jess, because the dried fish is really just it elevates the whole thing, and she's so right that you can have it in a very rustic way, and it's just as delicious. But Formentera has I think just one 5-star really luxury hotel, and they have a beautiful restaurant up on the rooftop, and I had like a very elevated version, and it was just chef's kiss. But yeah, the rustic serving on the beach can be just as delicious. The tomatoes in Formentera are just so amazing. Another dish I had was where they just prepared tomatoes in sort of 6 or 7 different ways, and everyone was like more delicious than the next. It's just the produce, the soil, that fresh, beautiful water, everything there is just so fresh. Yeah, really good tastes.
Yeah, Maya, do you agree with that? Is that
Yeah,
your top dish?
absolutely. I mean, certainly in Formentera, the tomatoes and actually a lot of the local produce in Formentera, you can sort of just stop into little places and it'll be an old woman who just does tomatoes, or an old guy who just does olive oil, or someone who's just making bread. And I forget the name of the route, but there are little pamphlets about this where you can you sort of drive around, and these places are marked as places that will welcome you to go and just try their tomatoes and, you know, sort of taste the local things. For me in Ibiza, it's like in one of my super old school tapas bars, roadside tapas joints. And it always used to be frito de pulpo, but then I watched My Octopus Teacher and I can never eat an octopus.
Yeah.
So this really ruins that for me. But yeah, pimientos padrones, all your little old school bars like Baranita or Cancreu, where they still have the little sort of perspex tapas display on top of the bar, and you go have some albondigas, which are like little meatballs and tomato sauce, or, you know, patatas bravas, but just really super duper local. I would always just say eat as the locals do. I think also in Ibiza, you've got a lot of sort of really interesting Middle Eastern flavors, not as a hangover from occupation, clearly, but as in more of a sort of recent arrival. But it seems to be a sort of trend, and Ibiza does it really well. There's a lot of places like La Paloma in San Lorenzo, and the restaurant up at the Six Senses, the new Six Senses resort, phenomenal Israeli Middle Eastern cuisine, really, really exciting, and mainly plant-based, which obviously is pretty good for the island.
It's just, God, yeah, my beans and taste are going to look pretty rubbish. I'm not having beans and taste. I'll just say that now. And I also wanted to touch a little bit on festivals, because obviously festivals are a huge part of culture in Spain, and they really are a unique experience. Is that the same for the Balearics as well? Where would you recommend to really immerse yourself? Maya nodding authoritatively there.
Well,
you got any in mind?
Ibiza on August the 8th is a, well, for me, that's the one. It's sort of Ibiza Day. And they have phenomenal fireworks down in the port, and every village will do its own sort of fires, and Balpayes, which is the very traditional old dancing, and everyone will come out. Yep, you got a picture of it there. There'll always be a little festival thing going on in the church, and it's just a really national day. But Ibiza being as sort of multicultural as it is, it turns into just a huge celebration of life, basically. And then the other really good one is the Procesión de Cofrades, and I forget the date of that, but it's the Fishermen's Festival in Ibiza town. And at night, it's very beautiful. All the fishermen take their little yacht, which is the traditional wooden fishing boat, and they take them in as night falls, just very slowly out of the harbour, and it's all candle lit. They all carry a lantern, and there's some representation of people who are lost at sea. I don't remember exactly what that is, but it's and they carry their patron saint on a cross at the very front of the procession of boats, and it's all lantern lit. It's really atmospheric, beautiful. The procession of the Cofradias.
Sounds incredible. And when does that take place?
I'm not sure. Someone will have to Google
Somebody in the chat will know somewhere. Isabella, are there any festivals on your calendar?
Yeah, I was thinking about also in Ibiza, I think it's in San Mateo in the north of the island. They have a wine festival in the autumn, which I haven't been to. Maya, you might have been to it. Actually. But it's supposed to be, you know, again, a celebration of sort of all these traditional dances and the trading of the grapes and that kind of thing. So if you know anyone who's looking to go in autumn, that's a great thing to go to. I think it's September, I think, but you know, I double check.
Yeah, Fiona, anything for you that stands out?
Yeah, the gastronomic weekends. The first 2 weeks in May and October in Formentera, they have all sorts of special events, and local restaurants will have like set menus for special prices, offering like local cuisine, and it's a really great way to try something you haven't had before.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's also the Nights de San Juan, which is not specific to the Balearics. It's celebrated all over Spain, but that's massive in the Balearics, and it's on the 23rd and 24th of June. And there's a lot of leaping over fires.
Yeah.
Why would there not be?
Yeah, I think it's for this the San Juan festivals in Menorca as well, in Ciutadella. They turn the main square into essentially a a huge gymkhana for these incredible horse displays,
Right.
processions through the city on these big black horses, and it's tiny streets just filled with people, and they sort of do these incredible displays and sort of jousting like displays. I think obviously you wouldn't get away with it in this country these days, but in this huge square, and again just building on that incredible tradition for the extravagant festival. And lastly, I wanted to touch, obviously we haven't been able to get through everything we'd like to at the moment, but I did want to talk about the Balearics as a slow and sustainable destination, and they really are perfect for that, aren't they, Isabella?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's sort of something that you see, that the moment you visit outside July and August, that sort of really comes to life. And again, as we've been saying, that's all about learning about local food. Maybe joining someone to learn about making cheese, or learning how to make mayonnaise in Menorca, which is claimed to have been invented there. Doing all these activities with, yes, I know it's a tricky topic.
Yeah.
Yeah, and doing all these outdoor activities that maybe it's too hot to do in the summer, and enjoying the beaches when they're quieter, and sort of all these kinds of things we've been talking about, visiting the cultural sites, and that kind of thing.
Yeah, Fiona, would you agree? Would you say it's a pretty good place if you're looking for a laid back, slow, take it easy kind of trip?
Definitely. Like for me, Formentera, as soon as I love Ibiza, it's awesome, but for me, once you get off that ferry in Formentera, it's like, now relax, and everything kind of slows down. And those green routes around the island, there's more than 30 of them, so you could your whole vacation you could just be exploring the island, all by bicycle or foot. And in talking about sustainability projects, both Ibiza and Formentera are banning single-use plastics with an aim by 2023, so definitely got their eye on green initiatives. And of course, the Posidonian Meadow project to protect all that beautiful seagrass is another key area of sustainability in the islands.
Absolutely. It's definitely leading the way, I think, in terms of the Mediterranean region with this approach to travel, especially in the last few years. And obviously, Jess, the Balearics, particularly Majorca and Ibiza, are known for the party scene. We're not going to go into that, but it's easy to combine the two, isn't it? Have a bit of a city break and some parties, and then escape into the interior a bit. How easy is that?
Yeah, absolutely. It's really easy. Palma in Majorca is particularly easy to connect yourself around the island, and whilst Palma gives you the nightlife, the restaurants, all the history as well. If you're into history, you want to do walking tours in the city, that's what Palma offers. But then from Palma, there's some incredible tours from there that you can take canyoning along the coast there. They all go out from Palma, so it makes it really easy to combine the outdoors, nature, and the city life if you want to. It's really easy. And of course, Palma, it's one of those cities where there's lots to do, but it also feels it's very relaxed. It's not your typical, you can't compare Palma to London. This is completely different. It's so slow. Everyone's super relaxed. Everyone's in their flip-flops and shorts. You've got the port there, which is beautiful to walk along the promenades. So even though if you're in a city, it very much feels like you're on holiday. It is a beautiful, very relaxed atmosphere in Palma, and it's very accessible if you want to base yourself there. And then particularly if you're someone who doesn't want to drive a lot, if you're someone who prefers to do group activities, Palma is a really good base to do that.
Absolutely.
Just to add on to Jessica's point, I met a hen party group last time we were in Formentera, and they'd spent several days in Ibiza, and then they'd come to Formentera to do the spa part of their holiday. And I just thought that was a really lovely idea to have a dual vacation.
It's so possible. I've been to Palma a couple of times, and it's almost like two different sides. You know, you can really throw yourself into the cultural side of it, the incredible Moorish architecture there, the Gothic, incredibly ornate, detailed Gothic cathedral, and the Arab baths are amazing as well. And you know, the thriving bar scene, the vermouth scene is incredible. The tapas bars in Santa Catalina. It's got so much going on, and as you say, a perfect base for exploring the rest of the island. But I do have some questions from our audience now. Lots of really good ones. I will perhaps start with you, Maya. Formentera, when would you say is the best time to visit Formentera?
Spring.
Spring.
Yeah, well, I mean, it depends. Spring, you're going to get the beauty of all the wildflowers, and Formentera gets pretty desiccated by the end of the year because it's so hot and has high winds. So the spring, you're going to get all the beauty of the wildflowers and the lushness, which is fairly short-lived. Autumn, you're going to get really warm seawater. So it depends if you're a land lover or a sea swimmer. But I would say either of the shoulder seasons. I mean, God, I love it all year round. I love it in summer too. There's always somewhere to hide. But yeah, so spring or autumn, depending. If you want the really warm seawater, then autumn. Autumn, yeah. And Fiona, would you recommend Formentera for a family trip? We've talked a bit about families today, and I know you talked on that. How feasible is it with a family?
Oh, 100%. Those green routes, you know, make it very easy to get around. Because that's one of the main things I think when you're traveling with small children is, can I get to all the key areas I want to get to easily? And can I get back to my hotel if, you know, said toddler has a tantrum and it's time to go home? Can you get back? You don't want to be getting on a city bus or having to figure out a taxi, and it's just so accessible. You can really walk from, you know, wherever you base yourself, whatever town that you're basing yourself in, you can get everywhere super quick and easy. There's so much to do in the water, you know, paddleboarding and kayaking and all sorts of things that kids love to do. Yeah, I think it's a perfect family destination.
Maya, would you echo that?
Yeah, absolutely. I've got 3 kids who are 7, 5, and 3, and we go to Formentera for great big chunks every year, and they love it. You know, just stay in some little retro beach bungalows where they can tumble straight out onto the sand, and then you sort of shove them in a bed all together at about 10 o'clock at night when everyone's still sandy from the beach, and the restaurants are all very lovely towards them. And a lot of people, us included, always hire a mahari, like a citron mahari. They're like little dune buggies with sort of tarpaulin roofs. And it's the only place where I only ever drive barefoot. And it just, you know, it feels right, tumbling down these little caminos with the sleepy tots in the back. It's great.
Do everything barefoot. In Formentera, everything's barefoot.
Yeah, even the supermarket.
Exactly.
If you have very helpful grandparents, though, it also makes a super romantic getaway for parents who need a little break from the little ones.
Ideas.
I had my honeymoon there.
Oh, lovely.
Oh, lovely.
There's a seal of approval for sure. Definitely. And a question here, if I want to spend a week on Formentera, what should I not miss? I'll go to each of you there. If you had to see and do one thing on Formentera, what would you say is the number one thing to do? Isabella?
For me,
Put you on the spot here.
I mean, yeah, there's a couple of things. I'll go for one. But looking out to there's two lighthouses, I think it is, and last time I was there, the one on the south side of the island, you can't drive to it. You have to walk, I think it's 20 minutes or so, all the way out to the end of the island, and it feels it's just sort of magical. There'll be a few other people walking out with you, but it's very sort of raw and natural, and it's a beautiful spot.
Lovely. Jess, what about you? What's the number one thing to do?
I love renting a bike, and I don't mean a moped, because everyone gets a moped in Formentera. It is manic on the road, and if you're like me, terrible word, I can't get. They actually refuse to give me a moped because they saw me drive away and crash it right there. So that wasn't an option for me, but I really did enjoy taking a bicycle instead, because that got me off the road, and you can just cycle some dusty, sandy roads, and just get a different perspective of the island. And I just did like a beach crawl on my bike, which is great fun, great for families as well. I saw lots of families doing the same. And yeah, if you want a particularly beautiful ride, I cycled to Mijon Beach, which is stunning, and I went there just to go to one restaurant, which is La Fragata for lobster rice, which I absolutely love. It's amazing. You sit there and you eat rice with your feet in the sand, stunning views. You're in sand dunes, so it feels really wild. And yeah, so cycling for me, it's very simple, but for me Formentera isn't really about ticking sites off.
No,
it's not that kind of vibe. It's just about getting your feet sandy, as Maya said, and just getting down those dirty sandy tracks is really good fun.
Amazing. And we'll do another event to find out about what happened with Jess crashing her Join us next week. Maya, what about you? What's your favourite thing to do when you're in Formentera?
I mean, much like Jess, just getting down and exploring all the little dusty caminos. It's just heaven. I would recommend don't go with any kind of an agenda whatsoever, because it is just not the place. Don't go with any expectations of nightlife, because you're not going to want to. It's all about being up on the beach at sunset, tumbling home for some supper. Go to Macondo in San Ferran. It's the most amazing pizzeria where all the parents, sort of long-haired, beautiful parents, sit and play backgammon outside while the kids roll marbles up and down the village square. Whole place is sort of wallpapered with flyers from the 80s. It's amazing. Canacosta is a really beautiful and really important megalithic burial site, just near La Savina, where on the morning of the winter solstice, the sun comes through and illuminates the phenomenal burial chamber, and that's definitely worth a sort of half an hour detour off your path. And again, go and visit the lighthouses and stop for breakfast at Can Rafayette in Escaló. It's the most beautiful waterfront retro hotel. Do an amazing café con leche, pan con tomate, and there's a little ladder that goes straight into the sea, which is the best way to wake up. So that's mine.
And Fiona, anything to add to that? I mean,
just really echoing Jess as well, to just throw out your little list of itinerary spots, and have some nice Formentera wine, sit and watch the sunset, forget about the kids' bedtime. They'll go to sleep when they're tired. Just enjoy yourself.
Delightful. And lastly, a question here about the practical question: how easy is it to travel around if your Spanish is limited, or should I take a refresher course before I go? I am assuming perhaps in the bigger touristy hubs you're probably okay, but perhaps this viewer is asking about the more rural parts of the region. What do you think, Isabella?
Yeah, I mean, it's always helpful to, just brush up on a few words, even just sort of the sort of basic few things before you go. It can definitely helps in, just those smaller towns that might not be so used to seeing tourists. But the Balearics have been a popular tourist destination for a long time, and so many Spanish people speak incredible English these days. So pick a few words, do your best, but people are very keen to help, and English is usually widely spoken. Depends where you are.
Yeah. One last question. I haven't been able to get through all of them, but this is always going to be the case. Jess, how is the food for vegetarians and vegans, I suppose? Is it getting better? Is it still a bit of a challenge? What would you say?
Yeah, absolutely. It's getting a lot better. It definitely is. Majorca, obviously the cities, Palma, there are lots of lovely vegetarian, vegan cafes. There's also a lot of dish, like we said, that the best produce are the tomatoes, the salads, onions, olive oil. So you can get a flavour for the salt as well, is amazing. So you can get a flavour for the local produce, even if you are a vegetarian or a vegan. So I would definitely recommend, as a vegetarian, as a vegan, to go to the Balearics, because you can get involved in the local cuisine. It might be a case, okay, with the ensalada, you can ask without the fish. That's always possible. But if you want kind of restaurants that are tailored specifically to vegetarians and vegans, then you're looking more at the bigger cities. I'm sure the Ibiza has a lot more on offer. Maya will tell you all about that. But in some of the more rural places, you might struggle more. But that's the same in most destinations.
Yeah, Maya, any favourite vegetarian vegan spots in Ibiza, for example?
Yeah, Wild Beets in Santa Gertrudis is an amazing vegan restaurant run by a really great guy named Cliff Gruben. It's sort of become the veggie hub of the middle of the island, but really exciting vegetarian vegan food. But vegetarian and vegan food is everywhere in Ibiza. You know, Ibiza of all the islands, I think everyone would agree it's sort of the most alternative. Sort of, yeah. So you're hard pressed to find meat in a lot of places.
Yeah, good. Well, I'd be excited to hear that answer then. And lastly, Fiona, quickly, just to finish off on the food there, you talked about wine in Formentera. I didn't realise, for example, that it had a wine industry. So
yeah,
what's the story there?
I'm definitely not an expert on wine at all. If it's wet, I'm happy. But they do make wine in Formentera, and I've always thought it's very good. But I don't know if anyone else knows a little bit more information about it than that.
Barbaria, isn't it? It's a red wine. It's a really good red wine that they make in Captain Barbaria. I don't drink, but my husband says it's amazing and he loves wine. Yeah,
it's delicious.
Excellent, brilliant. And I think that's a very good note to end on. Things always seem to end with wine. Well, thank you all very, very, very much for this evening. I am desperate to go back now, having heard all of your tips and tales, and I'm sure lots of our audience will agree as well. So big thank you to you, Fiona, Isabella, Maya and Jess, for all your time and tips. And thank you also to our sponsor, Formentera, as well. Very grateful to you. If you enjoyed this, then we have plenty more this year, including our food festival, which is taking place on the 16th and 17th of July at the Business Design Centre in London. This is 3 years in the making nearly. So let's go back to the previous slide. There's just a bit more information. There's going to be chef demos. We're going to have celebrity guests, including Grace Dent, Jay Rayner, Aldo Zilli, Jose Pizarro, the Spanish contingent. And plenty more people with demos and cookbook authors and workshops and food stalls. It's going to be a great event. Tickets are available now, just £10 if you head to the website there, foodfestival.netgeotraveller.co.uk. And last but not least, we have a special subscription offer if you haven't already subscribed. I won't hold it against you. Just 4 issues and a tote bag for just £12, which is a very good deal if I don't say so myself. That's 3 issues of National Geographic Traveller and 1 issue of Food by National Geographic Traveller, and a very stylish tote bag to carry it around in, so you can be just as on brand as the rest of us. So more information on that online. So thanks again for watching, and hopefully we'll see you again soon.
Thanks everyone.
Bye.
Thanks
Bye everyone.
Bye.